What's up, guys? Welcome to this episode of the Friday Pod. Today, we jumped into three distinct categories. The first part of the pod, we talk about real estate, what's happening in the Australian real estate market right now as a result of a summit that Eric went to, or a private gathering rather, put on by realestate.com.au. So we've got some real data, some real facts and stats of things that are happening right now. Then we talk about profitability and how to make your business profitable. Right now, things are tight, things are tough out there for entrepreneurs. So we share some of the things that we're doing to make sure our businesses are not just making turnover, but actually making leftover to get through this period. And then we talked about stress management and what we do as men to manage in the world we live in now with businesses, families, all the concerns that we all have every single day. I hope you find the pod helpful. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. What is up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of Unemployable. We are joined in the studio by a couple of special guests today, apart from my good friend and business partner, Eric. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Good. Look at you, all unemployable now.
Unemployable. I thought I'd wear the glasses today, switch it up a little bit. I'm growing my hair out, and good thing that I got these headphones on because I'm like the guy from Sopranos. I just got gray hair on the side, and then the rest of it's black. So when I wear a hat, I look all gray, which is a problem.
Well, good to have you with us, mate. What's going on? We got Chris, of course, from Early Bird. What is up, Chris?
Morning. Go well.
For those of you who have never joined the pod before, Chris runs an agency here on the Gold Coast, an AI agency helping businesses implement AI in their business. And we've got Toni here as well. Now, Toni's actually been a guest on the pod before, and now we've asked him to come back and join us, bring a bit of young fire, another successful Gold Coast business. Toni, how would you describe in a nutshell the work that you do, just for our listeners who missed your pod, or maybe it hasn't been
It's
released
launching
yet?
in 2 weeks.
It's launching in 2 weeks. So just give us a high level what you do. We're not going to be interviewing Toni today. We've got a special pod just on his business, but just so people know.
We basically help high-performing men, business owners, guys who are making money, building wealth, but the rest of their life is falling apart. So they're stressed out, they can't switch off, have no time, marriage is breaking down, grumpy dad, drinking, sedating, basically men who are successful in one area, wealth, but their health and relationships are falling apart. We help them fix it in about 2 to 4 weeks.
You must be busy.
This is very busy, yeah. And you don't run out of clients, yeah.
It's funny. I was at Kaiser this morning, which is a specialist back clinic here on the Gold Coast, and they do back physio, really focused on back. And the car park is just full of like Range Rovers and Porsche Beamers. And I walk in and it's like, I know half the guys in here. It's like, we've all spent 30 years hunched over a computer ignoring our partners, and we end up at Kaiser in your seminars.
Yep. It's sad, but it's also good.
Either that or the divorce office in the hospital, right? Like, get subdivided. But Toni does amazing work, guys. And even if you're not on the rocks in your marriage or other areas, it's just great work that he does in empowering men to be better men. And one of the subjects we're going to talk about today, as we said last week, we are now breaking these pods into 3 parts so that we can do the long form, for those of you who love that, and then we'll chop the pod into 3 shorter form versions. And the third part that we're going to talk about today is stress management, and which I think Toni's going to have some really great input with the dudes that you see coming through. Of course, we lost somebody from our community this week in the personal growth community. I won't go into the details, but obviously very sad when you see somebody pass away so young and in the prime of their lives. And we just got to come to learn to manage our stress and so on. So we're going to dive into that. But if you want to follow Toni and you don't already, you can follow him on Instagram at Toni with an I, Toni, Toni Empowered Man on Instagram, or go visit his website, elitebusinessman.com, elitebusinessman.com. No .au, right?
No, .com.
.com, all right. And we're also going to talk about running profitable businesses today, which is, again, while we get a diverse range of business owners, we've got an agency owner, we've got an education owner, we've got a multiple different business owner over here. So it's going to be a really interesting chat when we dive into what we do to make our businesses profitable. And in times like now, guys, where the economy is tight, inflation is really starting to bite as well. Interest rates are still high. Us entrepreneurs and business owners need to get aggressive and strategic in remaining profitable, or at least not losing money through harder times. So we're going to dive into that. But to kick things off this morning, we are going to talk about the Australian real estate scene, a bit of an extension of our weekend a couple of weekends ago, where we took a bunch of our clients around Gold Coast and Brisbane and showed them 12 real estate deals. A lot of excitement, a lot of enthusiasm came off the back of that. It is the Australian national sport, making money through real estate, whether it's residential or commercial or land or whatever. But I thought it'd be interesting, Eric, because you just came from a briefing, I believe, with CommBank or one of the sort of professional bodies. I'm actually really curious as to your thoughts. Where are we going next year in 2025 in the Australian real estate market? So the immediate and the medium term, and even the long term. What's your view based on what you're hearing from those sort of high level banking events that you get invited to as an investor?
Yeah, so it was a really good event. It was actually put on by realestate.com.au, and all the data and stats come directly from their website. Obviously, they're the number one research platform in Australia, so they got plenty of data, and they had their chief economist there. So it was a lunch, and it's quite an intimate group of probably about 40 or 50 people, specifically in the development area. And yeah, it was quite interesting. So there, he is anticipating 3 rate drops next year, starting in April, is what they said, which is interesting. So I thought, I'm thinking it's going to be a little bit earlier myself. I'm just a little bit bullish, kind of. I know that being in the e-com space and having different businesses, things are tight, right? And there's not many retail businesses that are, high-fiving each other going, oh, this is amazing times. This is where you got to be, very strategic on what you're doing in your business. And I have a feeling that what will happen is, with all the consumer spending that will happen over Christmas, and then people get their credit card bills in January, things will be quite tight for those first couple months. And that's where I think maybe the RBA is going to come and kick in with a bit of a drop to help the economy out a little bit. So yeah, they're anticipating 3 rate drops. Canada last week just dropped their interest rate by 0.5%. So it's happening, right? You can see the writing on the wall. Term deposit interest rates have dropped in Australia. What that means is obviously they're anticipating an RBA rate drop as well. The biggest thing is timing. And this is where I see the real estate market changing a little bit. I'm seeing a lot more people sitting on their hands, not making very, very quick decisions. They're anticipating more stock to hit the market next year. And the stats are also stating that a lot more people are looking for smaller properties and smaller blocks of land. Whereas you go back 12 months ago to 24 months ago, we had a lot of money coming in from interstate, right? A lot of baby boomer money, a lot of people selling off their big properties there and then living the lifestyle on the Gold Coast. And that lifestyle is the big 3, 4, 1 apartment per floor type of projects that have been happening and being built on the Gold Coast that have been selling off the plan. And that's changing a little bit now. So we're still getting a lot of interstate migration to the Gold Coast, but the stats are saying that it has slowed since the peak of COVID, which you can understand that, right? Peak of COVID happens, people are stuck in New South Wales and Victoria. They're going, screw this, we're going to the Gold Coast, we're moving, we're going to buy a place there, we're going to rent a place there. And then COVID, disappears, and then things get back to normal, and they go, you know what, I'm missing my family, I got to see my grandkids, and some of them move back. So, but right now, the biggest issue that I feel is pushing this real estate market into different directions is the cost of construction. And when you look at the inquiries that are coming through, the amount of inquiries that are coming through for 1-bedroom apartments at the moment, and this is all stats from realestate.com, so I'm not just pulling this out of my ass, is there's a lot more inquiries coming in than actual supply. And the reason why is
for what?
1-bedroom apartments,
okay.
Right? And the issue with that is 1-bedroom apartments, whether you're building a 1-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom apartment, you still got to build a kitchen. You still got to build walls. You still got to put sliding doors. You still got to put windows. Yes, you're adding another bedroom and you're adding a little bit more living space, but the cost difference from selling a 1-bedroom and selling a 2-bedroom is massive, right? The profit margin on a 1-bedroom is quite minimal. So that's why it's not very attractive for a lot of developers to be building these one-bedroom apartments. So it's all good for people to be looking at one-bedrooms, but a lot of them aren't being built. And now, believe it or not, there's a development in Southport by a very well-known developer and a good friend of mine that is selling one-bedrooms. And one-bedrooms there are $850,000, right? And this is the new norm. You know, you could
Southport, yeah.
in Southport, you could get one-bedrooms 4 or 5 years ago off the plan for $550. That's long gone. You can't even build a unit for that anymore. So this is putting pressure on prices, and I see a new area that developers are looking at, and that is shrinking the size of units. So the 100 and 110 square meter 2-bedroom that was the norm on the Gold Coast, which is definitely not the norm in Sydney, right? They're a lot smaller. We're now adopting that similar strategy here, and 2-bedrooms are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, and a lot more efficient in regards to design, which again is putting pressure on prices.
So this is interesting. There's a bunch of things I'd like to dive into here, and you guys as well, if you've got questions. This is something, just to touch on the inflation thing that we spoke about last Friday, where we talked about people see the cost of goods going up and they say, oh, that's inflation. But we also know that, like, I'm going to tell you something that I'm embarrassed about. On the weekend, I ate a Mars bar. I have not had a Mars bar, I don't think, for a decade. But I've got to tell you, it's not what I remember. I literally think it was 30% smaller than it used to be. And the reason I always avoided a Mars bar is because they're so massive. But I had one when I was in a hotel in Sydney. I was like, I'm sure this thing probably cost the same or more than it did, but you're getting a lot less. In your shopping trolley, literally, volumetrically, goods are shrinking.
They call it shrinkflation.
They call it shrinkflation.
Yeah.
It's another form. But this is the point I keep making, is people are actually shrinkflationing their life. They're going to lower quality restaurants. They're going to lower quality hotels. They're going to smaller apartments and paying. So we're paying the same money for a smaller experience. So Milton Friedman said that inflation is the tax that we don't vote for. It's not, voted tax, but it's also the tax that we don't see. It's like an insidious disease that is inside of our lives. And we go, life just seems to be getting harder and not as good because you're not getting as much. So it's really interesting how it creeps into people who are working that extra 3 hours. They're working on Saturday morning. They're not being paid for it. They're doing this just constant concession of the people, which is why I'm such a anti-inflation person and money printing person. But some interesting things there. So building costs are super high. Does that mean that second-hand product is now there's a, if it costs this to build a new one, and there's this huge gap between a second-hand and a new product, well, building costs aren't going to come down anytime soon. So it would seem to me that that's probably going to drive up the price of second-hand stock until the premium for building new is.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So, and this was one of the topics. What's happening because building prices are going up so high, construction prices, what's happening is there's a bigger gap at the moment. So people are actually sitting there going, I want a brand new place, and that brand new place might be $2 million as an example. But a similar house that's renovated in a similar area, say, is 1.5 million. I'm just throwing these numbers out there, right? 500 grand is a big, big difference. So moving forward, what he was saying is they're anticipating that the secondhand market, right, will start to increase because more demand will start going there because people just can't. People will go, you know what? If I buy that brand new property, it's 95% what I want. Right? It's still not 100% because a lot of them aren't building it themselves. It's 95% what I want. Whereas the secondhand property is maybe 80% what I want, but I'm going to go with the 80% of what I want because I'm going to save a shit ton of money. Mm-hmm. But what will happen is over time, it's just a basic supply and demand rule, is more demand will go to that secondhand property. And what needs to happen is that needs to shrink. Whereas when you look at before on the Gold Coast, prior to COVID, off the plan apartments versus secondhand apartments, there was a massive gap going like how is somebody paying $1.5 million for this 2-bedroom off the plan when you can get one in a 10-year-old building that's actually bigger, because older buildings are massive. I remember, living in Sun City in a 1-bedroom apartment that was 140 square meters when we first arrived here. That's unheard of. And that gap, right, was massive. But what happened with the shift in COVID and stuff like that, the demand went up so high for apartments, and that actual gap has shrunk. But in the housing sector, it's actually still quite big because of the construction costs, and also cost of land has not come back as well, and that's putting that type of pressure on those prices as well.
Interesting times.
Can I just jump in there? What do you say to someone then who feels like they're priced out? Because I'm seeing that a lot with my clients. Is we hear these things and we go, well, cool, how do I get in? And it's getting harder and harder to get in.
Yeah.
And what we've done is we've gone elsewhere, like bought in Rockhampton and all these areas. And those areas have gone up 25% a year for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
For somebody listening at home who's hearing this and going, well, fuck, what do I do now? How do I get into this?
I have one saying I say to people is rent where you want to live and buy where you can afford, because it's a lot cheaper to rent where you want to live. Like if you want to live on the beach, as an example, you in a nice property, you're going to be paying, $5, $6, $7 million for that unit. But if you actually look at what that unit would rent for and the holding costs, if you were to buy it, it's a lot cheaper to rent. The people that are renting those properties aren't doing it for a yield play. They're doing it for a capital gain play, or they're doing it for a lifestyle play, and they're renting it temporarily, right? Like someone like Adam as an example, and with his unit, he wouldn't be buying that to go, oh, this is an amazing investment. I'm going to, park my money here because of yield, right? You can get a lot better return somewhere else, but the capital gain play. But when you look at rent where you want to live, buy where you can afford, still buy. But again, you might not be able to buy in Broad Beach where you want to live and you want that to be your unit. You may be able to rent there, but you might have to buy in the Back-in-Narang or Highland Park or Pimpama or Coomera, in these types of areas. The key is just getting in the market, because I'm a big believer, what you can't get back is that time and that compounding growth in equity. And the reality is, on the Gold Coast, we don't have enough stock, right? There's peaks and troughs in every market, but on the Gold Coast, we do not have enough stock in the apartment market. We don't have enough stock in the housing market. So basic supply and demand rules will stay in play. In the last 12 months, on average, Gold Coast property prices, as per the data from realestate.com, have increased 11.5%. And this is on a market where people have been sitting on their hands. Interest rates have been the highest they've been for a long time. We've got wars happening. We've got the election coming up, and property prices have still gone up on average. So that means some property prices have gone up a lot more than that, and other property prices have gone up lower than that at the same time. But when you start looking at that at 11.5%, $1 million property,
and this
do the numbers very, very quickly. You know what happens is, all of a sudden, I've been saving, but in a year from now, it's 11.5% more that you actually have to earn.
I got two things to say about this for all the people who are trying to get into the market. Number one, Australians need to start taking a leaf out of the book of immigrants. And what I mean by that is, stop trying to do everything on your own is one strategy. Like, get together with your best mate, pool your money if you want to buy something on the Gold Coast, and buy it together. The objective here is to get your capital into the market with leverage as soon as possible, because when you do simple math of like saving up a $300,000 or $200,000 to buy $1 million property and $800,000 of monopoly money from the bank, going up at 11%, $1 million property goes up, let's say $100,000, and you got $200,000 in, you've made 50% gain on your equity. And now, if you only have 100 of the 200,000, get in with a mate. It's still 50% on your equity. It doesn't matter whether you own the whole thing. It's about pounding your money as fast and as quickly as possible. So get together with a friend, form a little fixed unit trust if you have to. Go see a lawyer for $1,000. They can do it. And the second thing is, do the freaking math. Like, just stop sitting there like a loser saving. Get together with friends as quickly as possible in the market. Now, so either get in together with somebody or go to a growing regional center like where you picked, like Bundaberg and Rockhampton. These areas are growing. Do the research. I own property in Rockhampton, for example. We have a $10 million asset in Rockhampton. And the reason we bought up there is because of there's no jobs. The tightest rental market in the country is Rockhampton.
Yep.
It's 0.0 something percent. Like there's a waiting list of people. So do the research, get in the market, stop sitting on your hands, trying to do it as a hero on your own.
And one thing as well, really quickly, is it's not just that people are feeling like losers, it's that they're afraid. We have it drilled into us, like buy your home, live in it. And it's only when you listen to a podcast like this and you realize what the gains can be that you pull that trigger. But you go from that $1 million property to a $2 million, $3, $4 million portfolio. Now, let's say that portfolio goes up 10% a year. You've just made $400,000 exponentially, unless the market drops a bit, for the rest of your life. And I think a lot of people are afraid to pull that trigger because of that conditioning that I need to save, I need to keep money in the bank. But as you alluded to, that's one of the worst things you can do. Cash is trash. And it's a waste having your time and energy inside of it. So if anyone is listening and they're hearing this and going, shit, how do I get in? Get in. Like you got to get in. We went from $1 million to $6 million in 4 years, property portfolio.
And how old are you?
33. Right? And now the bank wants to give you money. And that $6 million portfolio is going to go up $1 million this year. So now, even if you don't work, you're hedging yourself against business, right? Business is tight right now. The world is tight right now. So getting your foot in the door is so important.
Yeah.
A lot of people are afraid to do that.
There's a saying in all investment, if in doubt, zoom out.
Yeah.
So if you zoom out and look historically at any asset, it'll give you a much better picture. The number, for those of you wondering, if you do that work, and I did it in preparation for the event, it's 7.3% is the compound annual growth rate of Australian real estate from 1990 to today. So that's 34 years. Now, whether that continues at that rate or not is another thing. You have to form your own opinion, but getting that confidence comes from learning. Like I talk to people about Bitcoin. Don't buy Bitcoin until you've done at least 100 hours research and 1,000 if you're serious. Don't buy real estate unless you've gone back. If you want to build your confidence to part with your cash, just look back in time, get a calculator out and say, if I put $100,000 into this thing over 20 years and 100,000 buys me $1 million property, for example, where would it be? What's my return on cash? And all this, and then do the thing and say, what's my 100,000 worth with 4.5% inflation compounding in 30 years? And pretty quickly you'll go, shit, I got to get rid of this money. But it's you doing the work. And with ChatGPT, you can simply type that prompt in, ask that question. It'll give you the answer like that. Like if I put $100,000 in to buy $1 million worth of real estate today and it compounds at 7.3%, where is it in 30 years? If I leave $100,000 in the bank and it deflates by 4.5% a year, what is it worth in 30 years? It's literally 2 minutes of work.
I think as well, there's two things I want to touch on. One is the mindset around the money. When you see money sitting in a bank account, right? It's liquid. You have access just in case. It's a comfort. When you take that money and all you're taking is one asset, right? And moving it to another asset class, which is property. Once it's there, you don't see it as cash anymore. It's not numbers on a screen anymore. You're seeing a loan balance, right? And an assumption in your mind on what the property is worth and this difference. Most people can't get access to that money. It's just money basically on a screen that you can't get access to, right? Whereas cash in the bank you have access to for those rainy days. And I think that mentality for a lot of people is hard to comprehend because, again, property is not as liquid as Bitcoin or stocks. It takes time to sell. You can't just sell it tomorrow. Bitcoin you could sell tomorrow. Your stock you could sell tomorrow. You can get access to that cash tomorrow. Property, you can't. And I think with a lot of people and I discuss property and investment with a lot of people, and they've mentioned this type of thing before, which is interesting, right? Because you can't access it. So, but what happens if all of a sudden I lose my job or I need access for an emergency and I don't have enough money? I can't just go to the bank and say, hey, Mr. Bank, can I get 50 grand off this? Because no, you got to show your serviceability and your credit card statements and the rest of it. So I think that's a big fear around some people. And secondly, back to the property landscape. One thing that we haven't had a lot of, especially here on the Gold Coast and kind of Southeast Queensland, is investors coming into the property market. We've had a lot of owner-occupiers buying in the market, and especially interstate owner-occupiers. What happens is when an owner-occupier comes in and buys a property and it's not an investor, that's one more property that's off the rental pool. And that's what's made rents go up so much over the last couple of years.
And Airbnb.
Right? And Airbnbs, right? And divorce, right? All of a sudden you need two properties, one for the ex and one for yourself. And that's the reality. So more property coming off the market. Divorce rates, all-time highs. Airbnbs, all-time highs. And when you don't have these investors coming in the market, puts pressure on the rent demand. What's happening now is what they're saying, the economist was saying, is that more investors will be coming into the market. Term deposits are going down. People will then start going, shit, I'm not getting my 4% in the bank anymore. I then got to take that money out and put it into different asset classes. And some of that asset class will be property, which will then create more rentals for people that are looking at renting, which should give some relief to some of the rent prices that we've been having to deal with, which is great when you own property, because you can't. What people forget is as interest rates increase, rents increase, and that's been like that for quite some time. But now I think it'll go the other way a little bit with investors coming back in the market.
What about also timing the markets as well? Because I can't remember where I heard it from, but I heard you don't make your money when you sell, you make your money when you buy property. And do you think, you mentioned the people are trying, sitting on their hands. Do you think that people are maybe looking at, things with what's going on around the world and the economy, all the things that are going on, and perhaps thinking maybe I should just wait until...
It's a bullshit excuse.
And that's what I was going to say. So what I'm picking up here is absolutely the wrong mindset to have is what I'm picking up here right now. So
go ahead, Eric.
For me, you can't time the market. It's timing in the market, being in the market.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say this is I had the experience myself in 2012, being young and crazy, it was still GFC in the US, and I did a trip to Canada with some family, and I'm like, you know what, screw this. I'm going to Florida, and I'm going to buy a property. And that was when shit was hitting the fan. And people were telling me, you're crazy. This is the world's ending. It's a GFC, just like COVID, right? The same type of thing. So like Warren Buffett says, be fearful when people are greedy, and be greedy when people are fearful, right? I got greedy when people were fearful. So I went and jumped in, and I bought a property, right, at a ridiculous discount of what it is. I still own that property today, 12 years later, right? Yes, it's gone up in value and the rest of it. But let me tell you, there wasn't many people by my side going, I'll come in too, right?
Well, you're talking about timing the market does work then.
It can work.
It can work. It can work. Like right now, Melbourne is an example. The property market's down. It's hard to sell stuff, plenty of stuff on the market. If you ask me, it's a good time to buy in Melbourne. But you got to wait a little bit.
Yeah.
But people won't. Most people won't do that because, again, when's it going to come back? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years? Is it 4 years? Like I've held the property for 12 years. Most people won't do that.
When I talk about it being bullshit, what I mean by that is for the average punter trying to buy an entry-level rental property in a growing market, it's mostly bullshit. Like that end of the market is least volatile. If you're buying big commercial assets and there are seismic, systemic changes in how people are working, for example, like office buildings, you don't want to be in office buildings. Technology is working against you. People don't want to go back to work. Although Elon's told everyone they have to, like it's soft as hell. Like the US is sitting on unprecedented losses that are currently unrealized in the commercial property sector, specifically office space, not industrial, because there are certain sectors that are absolutely vulnerable to seismic shifts and also vulnerable to interest rates. Like commercial property is largely driven by yield. So when interest rates go and triple, there's a right time to buy and a wrong time to buy. There's a right time to sell and a wrong time to sell. You know, like I sold two of my commercial assets when I was getting 3% yields, which for those listening, in that asset class is like all-time record low yields, means all-time high prices. And I knew interest rates were going to go back up. They had to. I'm like, you know, so I sold them at that point, and now they've softened somewhat from when I sold. So there are some, but for the average person just trying to buy a 3-bedroom rental property in Bundaberg or Southeast Corner or whatever, sitting there and it goes up 20 grand or down 20 grand on a 500 or 700,000, stop wasting your time and telling yourself stories. Just get in the market.
It's doing the work. And again, I could have easily not went to this event. We all have excuses. We're all flat out busy. We're all growing businesses. But I'm like, you know what? The 2 hours that it's going to take me to go there, and I get a nice free lunch out of it and meet some good people. But the key is sitting there, looking at the data, understanding the data, getting the slides after, researching the slides, and sending them to the people that are close to me that will understand it and I know will read it. And then they can make educated decisions based on that.
And have a long enough timeline. For the average person listening, don't go to real estate with a 2-year mindset. Real estate's like at least a 10-year mindset and probably 20 to 30, you know.
Yeah, so the reality is as well, the only wrong decision is not being in. It's the only wrong decision. It's not binary. It's not the right time or the wrong time. There are different pockets and there are different markets. When we bought most of our properties, we bought 3 or 4, I think 3 years ago, Sydney was skyrocketing. So we didn't buy in Sydney. We looked elsewhere, and all those up. Sydney's gone up, I think Bondi 6% or 7% in the last year. Some other pockets have gone up 25. Right. So there's always a pocket you can look in. And I think the number one thing you can do is just get curious. Go to the seminars, listen to podcasts like this and go, I'm going to find a place. You can find $300,000-$400,000 properties in these towns outside of the major cities that will go up 20% a year. And that one starts to grow, then you get the next one, and you don't need a huge amount of money to get started. But the worst decision you can make is to not have your foot in the door, because every single day you sit on your hands waiting, people are getting ahead, the market's getting ahead, and you're falling behind. So it's a belief that many people have, but you got to break that belief.
No, 100%. Like literally this opening 20 minutes, this opening clip, I think is worth more than its weight in gold. The fact this has just been discussed just openly and free, like this is incredible. I think this will make a lot of people very wealthy.
And don't buy, like for most people, unless you're buying a shit box to do it up and then sell it at the end of the CGT period, capital gains tax period, don't buy your own home. Just rent something simple like, you know, the big mistake I made, even though I can afford to make it, which is why I made it, but buying my own home, like I got so much capital tied up in my home, I could make 700 grand a year in interest for what is sitting in my home, right? Instead, I'm sitting there in a home that I could rent. Even if I paid 5 grand a week to rent it, it'd still be cheaper than actually owning it, right? But anyway, so let's change gears to profitability. So this is a topic I think people are going to really enjoy, profitability in business, especially in these times. Toni, maybe you could lead us off with your experience of building. Your business is in the multi-7-figure range, I believe.
Yeah, we'll do 5 mil this year.
5 million this year. But
lots of buts.
Yeah,
lots of buts. Lots of buts.
Yeah, well, you know, that's the thing, right? Like we all have our metrics, like when we're coming up and, you know, you learn these things as you get older about there's a difference between, you know, revenue's like a vanity metric, right? Your turnover, but it's what you're left over that changes your life.
100%.
So what's been your journey and what are you doing?
Yeah, so we grew from a team of 3 to a team of 20 last year. We hired 30 people and we just went for scale, help more people, add more value to the marketplace, make more money. We went from doing about 50 grand a month to 400 grand a month. But without realizing it, we kept raising our expenses. So our expenses went up to 300 grand a month, 350 grand a month. Now, when you have 7 full-time employees, the rest were subcontractors, that's 700 grand a year of wages. Then you add in the taxes, you're paying $1 million in wages, super and taxes. And I got to the end of last year, my daughter was 2 years old, and I'm like, fuck, why am I doing this? The stress became so high, and every day you look at the finances and you're making all this money, but you don't have anything left over. So one thing we're doing at the moment is we're trying to figure out how can we run this business lean? How can we have less people, less headaches, because the people can often cause headaches? And how do we build a business that's built by design, not by default? I think a lot of business owners, and I'm guilty of this, we just default to get up and grind, do the dirty work, do the hard work. And yes, you make more money, But with that money comes more problems, more stress, more headaches, sleepless nights. So in the last 2 weeks, we've let go of 3 people. We're downsizing as lean as we can. And we're trying to figure out and ask better questions. How can I run this thing with less people? How can I use AI? How can I have more time throughout the day? How can I increase the profit while also keeping the revenue high? Or even if I halve the revenue, what if I can make more profit? Revenue is very much a vanity metric, and I had to learn this the hard way. It's like, cool, you have a $5 million business. How much do you keep? You know, there are many businesses these days that have 1 or 2 employees. We met some at the property day, making millions of dollars a year. So right now, it's how do we downsize without hurting people? With that also comes the fear of letting people go that are loyal to you, letting people go that have stuck with you through thick and thin. A big mistake I've made as well is I put people before the business because I care about my team, I care about my people, and in doing so, I'll sacrifice my own health and sanity, but also the health of the business. I think it all comes back to this principle of default versus design. If we look at our businesses, how much of it have we actually designed, and is it the business we want to be running? Does it tick the boxes not just for money and profitability, but lifestyle, balance, time with family, hobbies? You know, a lot of business owners, they build this big thing, this monster, and they're tied with these golden handcuffs being high-paid employees. So there's a lot to unpack, but really it's about profitability, designing this business to give me and my family the life that we want while also making shitloads of money. And I think you can have both. If you feel like you can't, the first step is to go, well, look, it's not what I want. How can I shift this?
How did you, so Tony, I imagine you kind of felt like a crab in a boiling pot, you know, like it was builds.
Yep.
I'm trying to reach the man or woman out there that's on this precipice. Tony Robbins says 2 things. Quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions.
Yes.
And when you're on the edge of what you think is a breakdown, you're quite often on the edge of a breakthrough.
Yes.
Does that describe you just prior to this moment where you're going, shit, we need to make some changes?
Absolutely.
So how are you feeling? A lot like, were you going into work stressed? And then what was the moment that you went, all right, I can change this. It's within my control. What did you do? Did you go and talk to your wife? Did you go and sit down on your own somewhere? What was your process for identifying the changes that needed to be made?
It's a great question. It was a combination of things. So one thing we teach our clients, and one thing a lot of us struggle with, is creating what we call TEST. So TESST, time, energy, and space to strategize and think. So I've created time and space for myself every morning. I think, what am I feeling today? What am I thinking about? And I get what's on my mind and I put it on paper. And I very quickly saw that I was feeling extremely stressed, I was feeling overwhelmed, and I was feeling trapped. So if you really ask yourself as a human, what am I feeling each day? You'll see that there's some things there that aren't working. And we get so busy with business and with life that we don't actually create that time, that energy and space to strategize and think. The second thing for me was my daughter. You know, my daughter each day, I got a warehouse in Burley. I've been working from home for 8 years. And my daughter, it's going to make me emotional, but she asks, why do you need to go to work, Daddy? And you can see she's upset. And I've built this business for freedom. And I have to rip my hand out of my daughter's hand every morning. I choose to, it's a choice. And I go to work and then I'm missing my daughter each day. And I'm like, fuck, what's the point of any of this if I don't have freedom? So it was creating that time, energy, and space to realize how I'm feeling. And I'm not feeling great. I don't feel very happy. Then it's my daughter telling me that she misses Daddy. Then my wife says to me, the first 6 months of Talia's life, my first daughter's life, you weren't there. I was questioning whether or not we would be together. Our second daughter's due in December 23rd. And Rosie and I sit down, my wife and I sit down, and she looks me in the eyes and she's very understanding and very supportive. I'm grateful for that. And we've gone through a lot of pain to get there. And she says, I need you. She says, how much time are you going to take off? And my response is probably 2 weeks. And she looks me dead in the eyes and she goes, is that it? And I'm like, fuck, I can only take 2 weeks off without feeling guilty and stressed. Now, the final piece of this is I believe the universe, it's a bit woo, but the universe will present to you what you're looking for or attracting. I've been thinking about changing my business and making it more by design and more lifestyle based for about 2 years because it's been stressful for 2 fucking years. And 2 weeks ago, my sales manager quits. I've got all the time now. I've got the freedom. It's all in place. It's perfect. And I lose a key person in my business. And I go, well, this is probably a sign to change something. So it's a combination of family. It's a combination of thinking. It's a combination of losing key team members. And I think looking at your business as well and asking yourself, well, what's not working? And how long has this not been working for? You know, in our business is the sales team. I've been trying to figure that out for 2 years. It just isn't working. So we can keep trying to push our head through a concrete wall, or we can find something different. To summarize that, as a human, ask yourself, am I happy with my existence? Am I happy with my day? Am I happy with what I'm creating? And if the answer is no, understand that we're choosing this. I'm choosing the stress.
Yeah, I think, Tony, just to jump in, because there's a bit there to unpack, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
But I think for the listener at home, the first thing I want you to take from this is he externalized, he made space for himself, like he noticed the feeling and then hit the pause button, got up early in the morning, I'm assuming, and actually wrote down how he was feeling. That's a very, very simple, free thing to do, but it's actually very powerful from a psychological point of view, because it takes it out of your head and onto paper, where it's now contained to the four edges of an A4 or a little A5 book or something, and you can move it out of your head and you will feel your shoulders drop the minute you do that. Yeah. Well, it's out of you and it's actually externalized now, and it's something you can physically work with and have some conversations and talk about it. And every one of us at this panel, Eric and I'm moving overseas next year. We've had lots of times where we've had to sit down and have chats about what Eric said to me. What are the expectations of me, and what can I expect of you under this new structure? And we sit down and we create space for those conversations.
Hey guys, we recently ran a property day where we took people on the road in 2 buses and showed them 12 real estate deals. 4 of them were commercial and the rest were land subdivision deals around the Gold Coast and southern Brisbane. And this is the workbook. It's a 43-page workbook where we actually show you each and every deal, how much was paid for it, how the development was done, how much money was made, and so much more. And we've decided to give this away to anybody who's interested in this kind of thing. All you need to do is go to unemployable.com.au/2024, 2024. It'll give you an insight into what our coaching clients get when they join us in the program. It'll show you how millions of dollars were created through real estate deals right here in Australia just in the last few years, and you can get it for absolutely free. Go to unemployable.com.au/2024.
I encourage Chris all the time, because a nut job in that head of his. Externalize, right? And externalize. So externalize all the stress and the thoughts on paper. And then what you did is you recognized and you did this very simple thing called living above the line, meaning that you didn't go into blame, you went into responsibility. So for those who can't see my hands, blame is living below the line and responsibility is above the line. So you said, I can control this. And I'm going to start by asking more empowering questions, which, as Tony sort of says again, it's like if you lose control of a race car, the first thing they teach you is to look back at where you want to go on the track, because your hands will follow. Yeah. So you got to move the mind first and the rest happens after.
Yeah. Speaking into the mind as well, there are poisons in your mind that we're fed from the moment we're born, right? Don't cry. You need to work hard as a man. You need to provide for your family. You need to buy your own home. And one of the greatest poisons of the mind is this belief that you don't have control. Now, there are many things you can't control. You can't control your spouse, the marketplace, the property market. But one thing you can control is your choices. And the choices come down to what you think and what you feel and the actions you do or don't take. We tend to believe, because we're so busy in business and because we have so much going on and so many plates to spin and balls to juggle, that we don't have time, that we can't change things. But the reality is, if you are unemployable and if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, you have chosen this life. And the problem with that, or the challenge with accepting that, is it means if things aren't working, it's your responsibility. Now, Andrew Tate talks about fault. I don't like the word fault. No one intentionally builds a prison or gets divorced or fucks up their life. It happens by default. So just by saying, I've created this business, I've created this stress, I've created these negative thoughts, that in itself liberates you. The second thing is creating that time when you say in your mind, I don't have time, going, there's that thought again. And just bringing awareness to that poisonous thought, I don't have time, and going, well, when did I start believing that? Because there are 10,080 minutes in a week, 168 hours. All it takes is 60 of those 10,080 minutes to sit down with a pen and paper and write. Now, people struggle with this because when you sit by yourself, what happens? You pull out your phone, you start scrolling. There's all this stimulus. So one of the best pieces of advice I can give you, and we teach this to clients who make 50 million a year, they have the same poisons, the same beliefs, is every morning, get up an hour earlier, get out in nature with a pen and paper, do not check your phone, and ask yourself 3 simple questions. How am I feeling today? Single word feelings: stressed, anxious, triggered, upset, happy, excited. What am I thinking about today? Just bullet points. And what are my most important steps today? We call them hits, highly important tasks. And if you can get clear on what you're thinking and what you're feeling, park it, and then focus on the most important tasks, you win. And there's one final piece of this. A lot of people don't actually know what they want. They just go through life on autopilot. So if you can combine that daily practice with having clear targets of what business you want to have a year from now, not just in terms of how much money you're making, but what does your day look like? Do you spend time with your family in the morning? Do you have a leaner team? Do you make, time for hobbies or things like that? If you can combine that long-term or year-long vision with the daily practice of thoughts and feelings, that's 365 repetitions of understanding yourself. So taking responsibility, understanding yourself, and one day at a time, brick by brick, building the new business, building the new life, you're going to make progress.
That is personal development right there. It's basically self-awareness and intervention into your own, being your own doctor.
I got a question, Toni. How did it make you feel, right, when you're going, I've got 20 employees, 30 employees, whatever it was, I'm doing 500 grand a month, and now I'm actually going to consolidate all of this into a smaller business with less people, maybe less turnover. What did it do to your ego? Because I think a lot of people sit here and go, I've got this and, I've got that, but they don't know any of the underlying stuff. And us as men, right? I've got the faster car, I've got the bigger truck, I've got, this is how we're kind of molded to think and be like, right? How did it make you feel? Your ego to actually go, you know what, shit, I'm actually going to do something a little bit different than what I'm used to.
If I felt weak, I felt afraid, I felt uncertain, I felt unclear. You almost have to kill off a part of yourself, because we get to realize the reason we've built these businesses and the reason we have money in the bank account is because of the identity we've been in. So my identity the last 8 years, and especially since I had a daughter, just went on like rocket ship, just grind mode, has been grind. I don't know what procrastination is anymore. I don't know how to switch off. I don't know how to sit on the beach and just be calm and listen to the waves. So I've built this $6 million property portfolio, this $5 million business, this amazing family. I feed all my employees through my identity of this grinder. It's almost like you have to kill off that part of yourself or change the relationship with that identity to be able to downsize. And I spent 6 months in uncertainty, doubting what's the right decision. What if I fuck this up? What if I fail? What if I lose everything? But the evidence almost always shows that you figure it out. So I had to face my ego, and I'm still navigating this, by the way. I'm not perfect. I'm sitting some days for an hour at a time going, fuck, what do I do? But I've really had to go introspective and realize that it's not about the money or the car or the things. It's about having a fucking great life. Somebody we know passed away a few weeks ago. Death is this amazing teacher, and it sobers you up to the fact that none of it really matters. What matters is the here and now. I got this watch. It's the only nice watch I have. The day after I bought it, I cried because I'm like, fuck, got this thing I wanted. And when you get the thing you want, you're on to the next thing. So for me, it's been this constant process of facing my ego and asking myself, what do I really want? And why do I want that? Why do I want another house? Why do I want another car? I want to be happy.
Yeah, I've had a lot of experience with this in the last few years of just this reframing of what a flex looks like.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you first start, a flex is the Rolex, right?
Yeah.
or the flex is the next nice car or whatever. And in recent times, I'm selling sort of this trophy asset of mine being my home shortly, right? Like, and I will not lie, it's a flex for me. Like, I get to drive home to the best building in one of the best suburbs, and there's billionaires in my building, literally. Like, it's only 7. It's this whole story. Everyone knows that building where there's only 7 people live there, and I'm one of them, right? But to let it go was like hard, because it was like, oh, this is like a big deal, right? Like, it was such a big thing for me, right? But as you age and your values change, you start to realize different things about what a flex is. And for me, what happened was I realized that I was actually mostly unhappy in the big, beautiful home that everybody in that area knows, with the Porsche downstairs or the Ferrari or whatever. And it came down to just a discussion with my wife, and I think turning 50, and then chatting to Cass and saying, when are you happiest? Like, a really simple question. And like really, like, let's try and catch ourselves in moments of happiness. Like, when is that? It's like when we're discovering a new city, when we are going for our morning walk together, when we're having dinner with friends. That's it. And we didn't need the house or the Porsche, any of that stuff, to experience those things. And we realized, like, this is what our life looks like, and this is what makes us happy. Adjust the lists accordingly. And so we've gone about reframing what a flex looks like to us. And I realized when I really did the deep work, it came back to the simple question of, why did I start? And the reason I started was freedom. That was actually the real reason. I used to go to Brisbane Airport and sit there and look at the exit planes. You know, this one's going to Paris, this one's going to Nairobi. I'd been to none of these places. I didn't have a ticket to any of them. I just sat at the Brisbane Airport, International Airport, and just watch it. My dream was to be able to go to the business class counter, buy a ticket to anywhere, and come back whenever I wanted. And I realized I'm at that point now, but I've just added all these layers of shit of watching Instagram and Facebook and all these other people around me, and 10x with Grant Cardone, who I love to bits, but I'm not Grant Cardone. I don't want to 10x and do all that. I just want to be able to go for a long walk with my wife every day in a new city now and then. I want to learn language. I want to do some other stuff. And that to me is like the ultimate flex, to like look in my calendar and there's like nothing. I'm like, fuck yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
That's a flex, bro. Like,
Yeah, we forget our dreams.
I like the metric of like profit per employee.
Yep.
I don't give a fuck about the turnover. It's like, how much profit per employee am I getting?
Yep.
You know, like Dry Flush, I say to people like, look, this business could be bigger, but I literally built it. I said no to so many things with Dry Flush, like might attend 400 stores knocking on the door. No. Because then I've got to fucking chase up the bills from this company, and then the margin goes to half, and it's not where I'm at in my life.
Yeah.
So optimizing for the outcome that you want and really going back. And unfortunately for many of us, we need to go get the $7-8 million apartment or home, and then we need to put the Ferrari or the Porsche in the basement, and then we go, oh, but you have to have done it to actually, like, if I hadn't have done it, I wouldn't have really known for me that actually I just want to rent a 2-bedroom apartment in a good spot.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine rang me yesterday, and we're having a chat, and he's a builder. He's from Sydney, and talking to me about, hey, he needs to update me still actually, but he did this breath work experience, and he rang me. He's just like, I'm ringing you. I'm going to a meeting, but I need to chat with you about this and the profound experience that I had, and it's changed the way I think. I'm like, okay, cool. And he also said, because a friend of ours just turned 50 as well. It's his cousin, dear friend of ours. And he's like, Eric, do you know that and he's mid-30s, he goes, do you know when you hit 40, you've lived 55% of your life on average? And when you hit 50, you've lived 65% of your life? And I was like, no. But then when you start thinking about it like that, you start thinking a lot. Like yesterday, for the rest of the afternoon, I was just thinking, right? Because I'm at a stage in my life where I've never been the person to have one business and I am the guy that started it and I'm the guy that's run it and I'm that guy and I have 50 employees and I'm the guy on the top of the hierarchy, as an example, right? I've been able to be involved in multiple businesses and not be that guy. And I've done that on purpose, right? Because I am like, I want a life with flexibility, just like all of us here. And now with Unemployable as an example, I'm kind of being steered in a direction of being that guy and having control, which I feel like I need, because I've never had that in the past. I've always organized my life and my businesses in a way where I'm not the guy with 110% full control, but God bless all my business partners, and I've been blessed with amazing business partners that I've been rewarded based on that. And now I'm kind of like, I want to design something and I want to build something great, but at the same time, I don't want to have these shackles and handcuffs of me having to be that person and only me. And, you know, and Adam has mentored me in the past, and some of the comments that he's made from his previous businesses and different things is got in my mind going, okay, how can I create Unemployable, right, to not just be the Eric show? How can I create it to be a community-led, you know, organization where we can build leaders within the community to then build other leaders within the community, and keep building it from there, right? Because to me, we all need recognition. I don't want to be the only guy that gets recognition because I have this business doing this and I have this amount of employees and I drive a nice car and I travel the world and all this rubbish. Mm-hmm. What I want to do is help other people get recognized, right, for their achievements. Because I feel like as kids, we're always recognized for our achievements. Doesn't matter if you come first or 365th in the fucking long distance run, you get a ribbon, you know, you get a medal. You go to your ballet, you know, my daughters go to ballet, they all get a medal, they all get the flowers. And then teenage years finishes, you decide, yeah, okay, I'm going to try and become a professional athlete, right, or not, and everything stops. And then you go into the world of work and entrepreneurship and the rest of it. So for me, I'm really, you know, along the lines now, I'm going, how can I build this, right, without it just being me?
That's the question though, is how.
Correct. And honestly, last week when Perry was here the whole time, right, I've met with Toni, we met with Dan, we met with multiple people, organizing, getting it out of our heads and putting this, right, on paper and going, how can we organize this? And yes, there needs to be somebody that has the story, right, so people can understand who they are and the rest of it. But it's like now we can see so clearly, right, that there's people in the community that are doing amazing things, and how can we grow with them? Because it's one of those things, like I wrote it down, right? A business built by design, not by default.
Yeah.
You know, and that really resonated with me, right? And that's what we're doing right now is we're designing this, you know? I don't want it just to be, okay, this is the way it's going to be done because 5 other people that are doing it now are doing it that way.
Yeah, but what you don't see what's happening behind the scenes. And I've got 2 points on this that are very important. This question, how, is something, again, we don't create the time and space to ask ourselves. I'm sure there are listeners right now who think this sounds great, but I've got so much on my plate. And yes, I want freedom, but how the fuck do I create that? And the answer is you make the time and space to figure out how, because there is a way where you can have the nice house and the watch and the cars, but you can also love the fucking journey. You mentioned this age thing, 55%, 65%. One thing we teach our clients, which blows their mind every time, the average life expectancy in Australia is 82 years old, okay? So do 82 minus your age. If you need to grab a calculator, pull one out. Let's say you're 50 years old. So 82 minus 52 is what? 32 years. Now, you spend a third of your life sleeping and a third of your life working. Sure, you might retire, but take 2/3 off that number. So let's say you got 33 years left. You've only actually got 11 years of life left because you sleep a third of it and you work a third of it. And every time we do this at the events, men are like, fuck, I got 7 years, 10 years, 12 years. So then the game becomes, in business, yes, we want to make money. Money is extremely fucking important. It provides you with freedom and opportunities. If your family's unwell, you can get the best doctors. But how can you build Unemployable? How can I build Empowered Man? How can you build Early Bird while having peace, purpose, joy, and connection, right? PPJC, walking on the beach, connection, spending time with my daughter, connection, being able to just switch off for a day and not feel guilty, peace, Purpose, loving what you're doing. Health, exactly, 100%. So it's like, if you ask these questions, you'll find the answers. How can I keep building this business or change the business while having health, peace, purpose, joy, connection, and also loving every day?
And Tony, there are people right now, I can hear them. Tony, that's all good for you, mate, but you don't know my business. And of course, and to those people, I say, everything is a choice. You could stop breathing right now if you wanted to, right? Like, it's uncomfortable. It gets old pretty quick.
Yeah.
But literally everything is a choice, right? From being here on the planet to not, and so on, right? Like, so it's all a choice. And this is the reason I pointed that out earlier, where I said, you said, I'm going to live above the line. I am responsible. I created this.
Yep.
And I just want to touch on one other thing there, Tony, is it, and Eric and Chris, none of the changes, a lot of the changes are not fun. Like, literally firing people is the worst job in business ever, and it never changes. It never gets easier to do that. But the message I always drill into entrepreneurs is it's show business. It's not show friends. You are not here to do anything as a business owner. Your responsibility is to your family. And people don't like that sometimes. You know, if you read Felix Dennis's book, How to Get Rich, or you listen to the audio, which I strongly encourage people to do, if you are setting out on this journey for love and light, good luck to you. But it's not love and light it all the time. That comes later, right? First responsibility, make it profitable for your family. I look at Eric, right, and the stat that, with Eric is, you've probably had 80 to 90% of the time you're going to get with those two goals already.
Yeah.
It's a horrible number, but it's true.
Yeah.
They're going to leave home in 3 or 4 years.
I've seen a chart.
You've seen a chart, right? When they leave home, bro, they start going out, they come home and see you once a week, and then it's once a month, and then it's 3 times a year. You've had that's fucking sobering.
Yeah.
So but anyway, these changes and these things, guys, for all the entrepreneurs listening out there, I hope you are hearing this and really going, you know what? I am stressed. I've got to change. I can change. It's my fault. I'm going to fix it. It's going to hurt. But what are you building for? Yep. Like, as in, are you optimizing for, I want to go to the party? Like, I've seen some of our, business coaching competitors, and they go, we're real. We're not like those business coaches. We've employed hundreds of people. I'm like, well, who gives a fuck, mate? Are you optimizing for hundreds of employees? If so, I'm not the coach for you, right? Like, and they're flexing on that alone, right? I'm like, dude, grow up, right? Like, that's not business alone. That's not why people get into business. The vast majority of people don't get into that. They want autonomy. They want health. They want to have an actual relationship with their wife. You can achieve that on $500,000 or $1 million a year. That could, for some people, be generated with 5 or 10 people.
And that's why I'm, on a lot of coaching calls and different things. I mentioned it again yesterday is writing down what it's costing you to live and what are you missing out and how much more do you need to make to actually live a life that you think you need. And most of the time, it's nowhere near what we think, right? Like Adam, right, pulls out his compound calculator, and some of the calculations just blows me away that you can have X amount sitting in an account, and not run out of money and pull money, a certain amount out of it. And it's understanding those numbers. And that's what I didn't do that back in the day. I would just grinded, hustled, but I always had family on front of mind. Like this past weekend, it was a Gold Coast 600, Gold Coast 500. I got invited to go to the private box with Gold Coast Bulletin because we do some stuff with them for the property business. But last weekend was full blown. It was Friday, all day, right, property event. Saturday, all day. Friday, all day, plus the dinner. Saturday, all day at the event, plus the dinner. Didn't see them other than the half an hour that they were there. Sunday, I was zapped. I was just like, I was tired, so I didn't have a lot of energy. Couldn't give too many people too much attention. So I said, you know what? No, I'm not going to go to the Gold Coast 600 or 500, and I'm not going to schmooze and network and the rest of it. I'm hanging with the family this weekend. And these are the decisions that you need to make and what's important to you. Because like Adam said, I look at my daughters every day, especially my 11-year-old, right? And I'm like, God damn, I know there's only a certain amount of time before the boyfriend comes and the friends and the time, and then they're not around. Because I was the same, we were all the same. And now with technology, it's even fucking worse, because you're losing them to a device.
Yeah.
You're losing them to a screen. You're losing them to a device, not just physical people. And it's eye-opening.
Everybody's got I hope, take Tony's advice, create some time and go, what am I building and why? Get really clear on it. How am I feeling? It's great advice. Listen to that section back, because it's really, that's how you live a purposeful life.
And then you can figure out how much profitability you actually need.
Yeah. It's hard to figure that out if you're not at peace, right? Because it's all fabrication. It's all stories. I mean, we started on profit and we can end on profit here. It's profit is the money you make, but it's also the lifestyle. What's the point of being successful and making money if you lose your wife and kids, or you have a heart attack, or you spend 30 years miserable? Like, profit isn't just money. It's also the quality of the life while making that money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, nobody's immune to this. We are all doing this all day, right? And we're all in similar echo chambers. So we have Alex Hormozi there, and we have this impression that you get a computer, you point it at a brick wall in an apartment that you lease in Las Vegas, you lift weights, you fucking work 18 hours a day, and that's Alex, and that is him. And it's beautiful for Alex. Or you watch Grant Cardone and he's just elevating, or Patrick Bet-David, elevating. But is it you? Is it really, really, really you? Or is it you trying to take on the personality and everything of somebody else? And the minute you actually really get clear and you start observing all of that and go, I am an independent person here with an independent life path. What do I want? Then things become a lot easier, because it's so hard sometimes. Constantly.
Yeah. And we're doing everything now because we're doing it because we feel that's what everybody wants us to do, What's that saying where, a lot of people buy things that they don't need with money that they don't have to impress people that they don't like. Exactly. Like I fall in that fucking spot a lot of the time, right? I know you do too, Adam, right? Like, I know you would probably, Tony and Chris, like, this is the shit that we do. And then we sit here on a podcast and we talk about it. And then this is why I love the podcast so much, because not only is it learning for the audience, man, the amount I get out of it, just you sitting in that chair today, I'm just like, fuck me, like, I'm listening to this back multiple times just because we're in the trenches. This is what we're doing, and again, we have to design it.
And it's not easy. None of this stuff's easy, by the way. I'm not sitting here saying like this is fucking a walk in the park, but there's the pain of doing it, which is time and space away from the business, or there's the pain a year from now going, fuck, there's another year gone. They're both painful. So choose the now pain, do the hard shit, and you will move forward towards what you want. Or don't. Do whatever you want to do. But you can't complain about it.
It's very tough for a guy like Tony, for example, to turn up at, let's say there's an event for people in his space, educators in the positive masculinity space, right? And sometimes you might see an Andrew Tate video, or you might see somebody like Garrett White who does it, and they do it even bigger. They're doing 50 million, 100 million, and then for you to rock up an event with those guys and actually be really authentically comfortable in your own skin because you work 4 days a week from 10 till 3 and you spend time with your daughter, but you only make $1 million a year profit, and be cool with it, that to me is so fucking superhero.
Yeah, that's so difficult.
And I respect the shit out of people who actually know their path and are cool in their path. And I've met a few of them, like, that just know where, like your business partner, Chris, has this vibe about Chris. Yep. He lives in his lane and he does extremely well, but he's not, I don't get a sense that he's trying to compete with anybody. No. Zero fucks given. And I observe that with people, and I look at those guys and I'm just like, that's my superhero. Like, who are your superheroes? One of mine's Kim Illman, who started Messages on Hold. Like, you guys tend to know what that is, but he basically built a telephone answering service in the 90s. And then he got it to a point where he went, what do I want to do in my life? He says, I love F1. Now he's from Adelaide and he travels the world as an official F1 photographer. And it's all funded by that one business that he built 30 years ago that still pays the bills. And he decided to go the path of fulfillment rather than, and you can look him up online and you can follow him on his YouTube. Now he's got 1 million subs on YouTube and he's blown up and he's a content creator, but he's like 60, from Adelaide.
So good.
Yeah, so these are trying to find new superheroes that really genuinely inspire you, So last point to finish on, guys, this pod will be a bit longer in the long form, but we can chop it up. The last one is stress management. I just want to do a quick round table. Like, what do you guys do for stress management? Or how do you think about stress management in your lives? Are you winning at it? Are you losing it? If you just say, fuck, don't ask me, I'm a mess.
Heaps of cocaine, alcohol.
Welcome to the Gold
Not
Coast.
anymore.
Cocaine and whores.
Yeah, so for me, this is a very difficult thing. My stress comes from watching my mother grow up. So she was a very stressed person, raising 2 young boys in another country. And I'm still unpacking and dealing with the shit that I've been raised with, because most of our stress, anger, frustration comes from our childhood. For me, I still struggle with stress immensely. What works best for me is honestly just stepping away and zooming out, which is stressful within itself. So going for a walk on the beach every morning, no matter how much work is on, even coming here to speak with you guys, I had a bunch of work I had to do. I was stressed about coming in and speaking, but I knew that I would feel better afterwards. So for me, detaching from work and the things that stress me out, journaling, writing down things, getting it out of my head, breath work and meditation. You know, we had Johannes Egberts, a breathwork instructor at our last event, and he talked about the studies. They've done a lot of studies around this. The best breathing technique you can do, bar none, is 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out for 5 minutes. So 10 seconds, 5 in, 5 out, 6 times in a minute, 5 minutes. Do that in the morning, do that in the middle of the day, do it in the evening, and it improves every health marker. So just breathing, slowing down, journaling, and also having fun. That's something I've forgotten how to do in business. I think a lot of people can relate. What's a hobby? What's fun? So just getting out, going for a surf, but nature, journaling, and breathing work really well for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, look, I've been very, very quiet this podcast because I've been very, very privileged to have a front row seat to some incredible conversations. That's really, really timely, obviously, for where I am right now with Early Bird. And so with us, obviously the profitability side of things, I've been really dialing a lot of software side of things too. But in terms of stress management for me, it's interesting you said you sort of zoom right out. I zoom right in, and I don't know if this is the right thing or not, but just being like hyper-focused on the present. Like right now, I'm sitting here in a chair, right? We're in a nice, comfortable place having a really good conversation. So being really hyper-focused on the here and the now. And then also just, there's a movie, I think it's about one of the CIA bases in Syria where basically the 13 Hours, I think it's called. And one of the operators in that movie was saying about how reading from a book, like all the heavens, all the hells, all the angels and demons are within you. That I think about that all the time. And so no matter what is going on, to your point earlier as well, what you were saying, you have a choice of how you handle it. And what you said, Adam, as well, whether you live above the line or below the line. And so, no matter what's going on externally, we always have that power internally of deciding, okay, cool. Am I going to be, letting the angels or the devils win, or the heavens and the hells win? It's all within us. We can make our own stress and everything too. So that's sort of two things that I sort of really focus on in terms of stress management. And yes, absolutely right now there's a lot of stress on. We've got clients, we've got team, we've got all sorts of things. We've got hiring, firing, all the same stuff.
It doesn't stop.
It absolutely doesn't stop at all. And that's a big piece of it. And this conversation has been great. I know there's a reason why you guys have been saying you got to talk to Toni, which is brilliant. And
you got to talk to Toni, and Toni's got to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, similar sort of stuff too, because I think there's a lot of synergies there too. And yeah, it's been absolutely phenomenal. I think this podcast, I know for me personally, and I hope for many others out there, has been gold. And that's two things that I do to help manage my stress.
What about you, Eric?
I don't breathe. I don't journal. I'd love to say that I do.
You don't seem too stressed either. I talked to you about this last week.
Yeah. I had a guy, I had a Pornhub gets it.
It's not the only thing that gets a pounding, eh?
So one of the sales guys, Early Bird, came up to me at the event on Saturday night at dinner. And he's like,
those are rookie numbers. You're going to pump those.
He goes, what are your vices, bro? He goes, you look like you have it together. You don't drink. You don't do drugs. You don't do this. You don't do that. And I'm just like, I finished Pornhub last week.
Twice.
No, but I feel like I've handled stress quite well in regards to not taking things too serious. I can shut off when I need to shut off, I feel. I do deal with anxiety from time to time, and it's harder to shut off on those times, but I feel like I've managed to control that a lot better. And when I do breathing, I do breathing in certain times. That's the thing that'll kind of calm me down. Chris last week got stuck in an elevator, and he's there going, okay guys, here I am, this is giving me time to think. Like if that was me, I'm Spider-Man crawling through the cables looking for the opening. Like I'm watching him, and it was giving me anxiety.
Yeah.
So mine's situational, right? But when it comes to actual pressure of work, I'm not the guy that has a zero inbox, right? Adam, zero inbox. Perry, zero inbox. Business partner Chris, zero inbox. If people look at my inboxes, they'll fucking go bananas, right? But I'm okay with it, right? I don't need to have my labels out, with the stuff in the fridge, and life's not perfect. I don't have to have everything perfect in the house and the cleanest car at every point in time. And I've been cruisy in that kind of way, and that's both my wife and I. And I think if you're that obsessive compulsive type of person, that in itself will create stress on top of everything else. And that's how I think I manage a little bit. Secondly, I like laughing, man. I love having a good time. I love having a joke. I love being inappropriate. I love making people laugh. I love laughing myself. I think we can't take things too seriously. I try and calm myself down a little bit on the podcast, and I want to say things that I don't, and I try and be a little bit more restricted,
degenerate.
right, for our audience at the same time, and the respect to them. But one thing I have learned to do over time is I've always been, I feel, a good communicator, and talking about feelings and how you're feeling. And I've had a very supportive wife, which helps a lot. Very supportive parents growing up. So communication for me was always big. It was never off topic. So I think those few things for me is what helped me. I wish I could sit here and say, I've got a morning routine and I do this every day, and I journal and I breathe and I, shine my ass to the sun and all this kind of shit, right? Ada's been testing it, so I just no, but in all honesty, that's probably something I need to be more disciplined in. I have a friend right now who messaged me this morning just going, bro, fucking, I've done this, I got my morning routine, I've been here, I've done that, and I'm just like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, that works for him.
Right, and I just feel like I need to embrace a little bit of that. But again, I feel like if you're putting too much pressure on yourself by saying, I got to do this and I got to do that and I got to do this and I got to do that, just because, you see people doing it on Instagram and Facebook, that can create stress in yourself as well. So just find out what helps you and makes you tick, and just do that. Like laughing for me is big, right? So I continue to laugh. Communicating for me works. I continue to communicate, not taking things too seriously and going, you know what? I know I got to do that, but I'll just take care of that in the morning every once in a while is okay. And that's just the way kind of I roll, because I get that asked a lot, like, how do you manage different things? And one other thing is just surround yourself with fucking amazing people and just,
You know what I've observed about you?
That.
You're really good at letting fires burn. Like I would assume, we see that email come in, it has to be dealt with that day. And I'm assuming here, guys, but I know for me personally, like I need to get it done. I see the language, it has to be done. And that in itself creates stress. Whereas what I've observed about you is you're able to detach very easily. I don't know if that's an innate skill you've always had, but that's something that I definitely get to practice, is how do I detach and realize the world's not going to end if I don't solve this problem right away? You seem very good at that.
Yeah. I guess we're all different. We're all different beasts, and that's probably something that I've been accustomed to, and
He's been
natural.
married the longest. He's figured out that if you want to stay married, you don't solve the problem.
Yeah.
That's only solutions.
You just listen.
Yeah.
You don't need to solve shit. Just listen.
How about you, Adam?
Oh, look, I got a bunch. I mean, there's so many things that I've learned over the years about stress management, but I'm just trying to think about the person who's listening to this, who's in the thick of building their wealth, probably got a young family, not the stuff that I do today that's probably not as relatable. So I think for the man or woman that's come, like, how am I supposed to be a great mum, have a great body, be a great wife, or the husband who's got his shit going on? The biggest thing for me that's so simple, and I learned it from when I was being treated for severe anxiety, was what we said before, is externalizing your thoughts onto a clean sheet of paper and just write, like I've said it so many times, just put me in the middle of the paper with a circle and then go, business, what am I thinking about? And then just boom, I'm thinking about this person's not performing, this, holy shit. Once the pen starts, then I do another circle, health and fitness. What am I thinking? I'm too heavy at the moment. I'm not fit. I should be doing my stretches. All the shit that we are all trying to do it wherever we are. And just write down everything you're thinking about over one session and a cup of coffee in the morning. And it will just make you realize that your feelings are not unwarranted. There is a reason you're feeling stressed. Your life is complex. You are dealing with a lot. Acknowledge yourself for that as a starting point, and you will feel so much better the minute you just give yourself that tiniest little bit of credit, and then start to look at each one and get help where you need help. Go and hire somebody who can help you with your fitness or whatever, or a buddy or a mentor, and just start attacking them one by one. But so I would say externalizing is probably the fastest hack. And just remember, you'll be dead in a minute, so don't worry, it'll be over. So,
I always think in my mind as well, is if I'm stressing about something, I always think there's an automatic thought that I've programmed myself going, you will not be thinking about this time next year.
Yeah.
It won't even be a fucking thing on your radar.
Right.
So like,
that's very true.
My mom always used to say, this too shall pass.
Yep.
I would say be kind to yourself. Just be kind to yourself. Give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
Because it is like, we are unemployable, which means we have different problems to the average person, and these problems are okay and they will pass. And it's okay to be stressed, and it's okay to be overworked and tired, as long as you come to that awareness and do something about it. Right?
Yeah. Check in with your mates. Again, just coming back, we lost someone this week, and check in with your mates, make sure they're doing okay. Somebody sent me a really cool thing on Instagram, which I sort of had done, but he sent me a video. This guy was saying how, there's an Aussie guy actually, I think he was in Melbourne, and he was, him and his mates, they call it catch up Wednesdays or something. So every Wednesday or Friday, whatever the day is, just pick a day with a few of your close mates, and you send a weekly update by video for just like on a WhatsApp group.
No, that's cool.
Say, hey guys, I just thought, this is what I've been doing this week. This is what I've been thinking about. And it's kind of like just a short video diary, like 2 minutes, where you talk to those 4 or 5 mates about how you're really doing. And his wife found out about this and was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. You guys are actually talking and sharing. And so the person who sent it to me, I sent back while I was in Sydney at the hotel. I made an update for him saying, actually, Jace, this is what I'm dealing with in my life. This is what I'm thinking about. This is how I'm feeling. And then, of course, I said, how you doing? Like, what's happening in your life? And I'm waiting for his video to come back, and I'm looking forward to it. But there's something about that video format where you actually get to see your mate, because you can actually, because we're just so texting and liking, and it's all bullshit. If you actually stop and do a real piece of communication to your mates try it, little WhatsApp group every Wednesday, 2-minute video, and see what comes out. I thought it was fantastic. So, all right, just remember, you're not alone out there, guys, and stress is obviously, it is quite a stressful thought to think that you are. So be reminded of the fact that if you are struggling with profitability, if you're struggling buying your first property, if you're struggling with firing people, if you're struggling with hiring people, that's why you listen to Unemployable, because that's the shit we're all struggling with. And newsflash, spoiler alert, it ain't going to stop until you completely get out of business. It will never stop. No matter whether you got 50 employees, 500 employees, same shit, different circus. All right, guys, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the pod, drop a comment, like and subscribe. Talk to you guys soon. Bye for now.
Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Unemployable. If you'd like to watch another episode, just click there.